Welcome to Career Tipper Podcast, hosted by Michelle Beatty. The Career Tipper Podcast is a motivational resource that shares career and entrepreneurial tips by industry experts that will help amazing people evolve to their professional best. And now your host, Michelle Beatty.
Episode 10 of the Career Tipper Podcast features Ahyiana Angel. Ahyiana is an author and podcast host, affectionately known to many as the Chief Encourager. She is proud of her accomplishments for creating an environment where others find encouragement as a result of her positive energy, skills, and fearless attitude. Ahyiana is a seasoned executor who eventually blocked out the world's ideas of success, quit her highly coveted position at the NBA, moved to London, and traveled the world for a stint. Then followed her passion in writing to find her purpose and encouragement. Mastering the art of noteworthy ideation and encouragement, Ahyiana taps into her zones of genius when speaking to audiences about her 4 Ps: publicity, publishing, personal development, and podcasting. With more than 15 years of professional business experience, lending her knowledge in these areas, Ahyiana serves up real and relatable insight. I'm your host, Michelle Beatty, career confidence author and coach. Ahyiana, welcome to the Career Tipper Podcast.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. I know, we're in for some treats. You're going to drop wisdom. You're going to drop encouragement. And you're going to talk about the 4 Ps that you're known for. But before that, what was your journey to becoming a chief encourager and a podcast coach?
So my journey really started with when I got out of college, or when I graduated from college, I accidentally fell into PR with a cable network. And that was my first introduction to that world. And I liked it because there was crossover in some of the skills that I had and some of my strengths, one of them being writing. So that led me to working in LA, doing PR for a number of years, then moving to New York, doing PR for a number of years there, as you mentioned, at the National Basketball Association. And at some point during my career at the NBA, I started a side hustle and I was making jewelry. I was a co-creator of a jewelry design line. So we were making jewelry that was worn by Beyonce and Solange and Amber Rose and, Marsha Ambrosius and on BET and Vogue magazine, just all these great placements for the jewelry, and it felt good and it was exciting and it was creative. And through that experience, I realized that my 9-to-5 and my day job was no longer fulfilling me in the way that I needed it to be. And I also started to feel like, hey, what's next? What else is there? What else is out there for me? So once I started really tapping into those feelings and understanding that I can't keep existing like this, I needed to figure out and start doing some real work to understand what was next for me. So I ended up just doing a lot of personal development work, a lot of dabbling in the self-help space, I guess you could say, when I didn't even know that that's what I was doing. A lot of it was just following my instincts as well as to what to do from one point to the next. And that led me to discovering and really thinking back to what my strengths were and what some of the things were that I found came easily to me. And writing was one of them, especially creative writing. So I ended up tapping back into this desire that I had years prior to want to write a book. And when I did that, when I really honed in on that being the thing that I wanted to achieve, I just went full force with researching the process because I didn't know anyone who personally and intimately who had published a book or had a book traditionally published. So I dove headfirst into that space and just figuring out what I could about it. And during that process, I was still working my 9-to-5. I was writing this book, and eventually I ended up leaving my 9-to-5. About 4 months later, got a deal to have my debut novel traditionally published. Then, as you mentioned, that's when I went to London and lived there for a while. And then I came back, and my story was so inspiring to people around me it was amazing to me. I didn't know that it was until people started telling me that, because I thought that the way that I was feeling and wanting more was an isolated thing, because my friends weren't feeling the same way. So once people started to hear about my story and they started to come to me and ask me questions and tell me like, wow, I'm so inspired by you, I really started to realize that there was a lot more people feeling like they weren't fulfilled just the same way that I was. And so that is what made me realize that this chief encourager thing was a real thing for me, because a lot of people would come to me even before I made any transitions just for advice. They would ask me things like I knew everything. And I was like, guys, like, why are you asking me? But I realized that they were asking me because a lot of times I would have advice, practical advice, answers, information, a right direction to point them in, or someone to connect them with. And so that's how the Chief Encourager title started to take shape before I even knew that it was taking shape. And then podcasting just ended up being a natural transition once the Chief Encourager space started to develop and I saw the impact that I was having on people, and also the need to have conversations about people wanting to make a switch, pivot, or quit, which is the name of the podcast.
I love it. I love it. And I follow you on social media, and I totally see that you not only encourage people, but you also build up courage in people.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a tricky thing because, you know, we talk about fear and things like that. And I'm glad that you say the word courage, because that's not something that we mention all the time, or at least I don't hear it mentioned all the time. And I think that there is there's something to be said about a person who finds the courage to do what feels most in line with their person and who they are and how they show up in this world. Because a lot of us just check the boxes and we keep going day by day because we're doing what is expected of us. And we know that there's a huge risk that we take if we step outside of the norm and what is sort of what's expected of us. If we step outside of that, it's like, oh, what's wrong with you? Have you lost your mind? You're going to try this. You're going to try, or you're going to switch your career at this point in your life. You've invested X amount of years. So it takes courage to not only go after your dreams and what you feel is right for you, but also to stand up to the people that are questioning you and to stand behind your decision.
It's true, because it's a form of self-love. That courage is a reiteration of self-love, which is career tipping, because if you know that you are meant to do something else, and you know that, like you said, it's not meant for you to check the box, it's meant for you to go trail your own, blaze your own trail in another area.
Right.
Not for recognition all the time, it's because you're being true to yourself. You're encouraging people to love themselves and respect themselves enough to honor who they are, their genius, like you say, the zone of genius, their intellect, and their capabilities.
Absolutely.
It's so important. And thank you for being an influencer, that, because, you know, we need that. We need people to encourage, and someone can hear what you have to say. And it's like, okay, well, your podcast can be life transforming, but I also like to say career tipping, because people show up differently when they believe in themselves.
Right. Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to expand and have the conversations of women that were making a switch, pivot, or quit, or most likely have made a switch, pivot, or quit, because I want there to be some type of roadmap, some type of sign, some type of insight that listeners can take from these women and their stories to say, if I've been considering this, I can do it too, because this is how she did it. This is what her story looked like. And it also goes to show us that not everyone's story is going to look the same, but because it's not shaping up the same way as you thought it would or as someone else's did, that does not mean that it won't be equally successful or beneficial for you to go after it, you know? And there's also there's this social sort of stigma that's attached to trying something different, doing something that's not within the norm. And that creates a lot of fear in a lot of people. And I know for myself, when I was just miserable and thinking like, what am I going to do next? How am I going to get out of this? I did not have many friends who were in the same position. And even if they were not committed to doing the work to get them to the next space. And that's one of the key things that I always try and tell people. If you want to make a switch, pivot, or quit, that's fine. But you have to be committed to doing the work to actually see the results that you want to see. You can't just say, oh, I want to make a switch, pivot, or quit, and then just sit around and wait for something to happen. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of work that's required on our part. And I wanted to be a part of bringing those conversations to the forefront to say, this is happening. People are doing this. It's possible.
You have what you call the zone of genius. So how can goal getters like yourself find their zone of genius that connects them to their happy and full potential?
I think it goes back to what I was just saying before. A lot of people, if they're anything like me, your parents condition you to graduate from high school, go to college. For me, it wasn't optional. You go to college, you get this degree, and then you live out the rest of your life just happy and content. That's the way they position it. And a lot of it is about going to college for something that you think is going to make you money and not necessarily contribute to a lifestyle that you actually want to lead. And for me, that's one of the things that I didn't realize until later is that I needed to figure out something that was going to help me contribute financially to a lifestyle that I wanted to lead, but also emotionally, because when you are in a space professionally that you're not necessarily happy in, it can be draining. So one of the things that I would suggest people do is go back to the basics. Go back to the basics for yourself. Start really getting to know yourself again. Start exploring yourself. And as simple and potentially even silly as it sounds, you will be surprised at the things that you really find and figure out when you take time to ask yourself the serious questions and to also really look for the answers and respond in such a way that you know that you're getting to the truth of things, and also doing some research on things that maybe you were interested in, or maybe it popped up in your mind at one point in time, but you were like, I couldn't possibly do that. Start going back to things that interest you at some point for one reason or another, and just start exploring those things. And the main thing is just getting in there and starting to do the work. The only way that you'll find your zone of genius is getting in there and starting to do the work so that you can become connected. And then the more that you become connected, the more people that you'll start to engage with. And if you have just no clue as to what you might be good at and what your zone of genius might be, do a quick survey of people that you trust, people that are going to give you real answers, unbiased answers, and ask them leading questions that will get them to answer things about your person or how you show up, or what their impression is of you, or what maybe your strengths are. Maybe it's even former coworkers and colleagues. Those are some of the people that know you the best in a professional capacity. So maybe you're the person that would always show up to meetings on time, prepared with an agenda when no one even asked for an agenda, and you lead the meeting. Next thing you know, you take over and you lead the meeting. Okay, so maybe leadership is a very big strength for you. Pay attention to those things that really work in your favor that might be easily overlooked by you. And it's not that you're going to be looking for this one specific thing. It might be a combination of things that collectively create your zone of genius.
I love it.
Thanks.
I love it. So clarity is everything, right? You said go back to things that you used to like and see, or you had interest in, and connect the dots sometimes from there. For some people, that's the path they need to take. So what has the pursuit of clarity gifted you that you now teach others?
The pursuit of clarity has gifted me insight into how to bring things out of yourself that maybe you didn't know how to bring out, or that you didn't even know was there. And I've just realized that through my SPQ, or switch, pivot, or quit strategy sessions that I do with people, sometimes we look for these big, profound things to happen, but it's the simple things that help us to understand ourselves and to help us uncover things that we didn't even know could be there. So for me, this has all been a wonderful experience. I could not have imagined when I was looking to make my switch, pivot, or quit before I even had coined the term switch, pivot, or quit. When I was looking to make that transition, I had no idea that I would be sitting here right now doing what I'm doing and enjoying it so much. I had no clue. So sometimes that's the beauty in the process too. And I like to help people uncover those simple things that can make a big shift and a big change for them.
Congratulations to you for, like we said earlier, courage, because it's gifted you so many things.
Thank you.
Doing your own switch, pivot, or quit. And if nothing else, I want my listeners to walk away with, it's time for me to switch, pivot, or quit. And this is an avenue that I can take, I can unlock. From listening to you, they can unlock doors that they only dreamed about.
Right. And I'll tell you this, like when I was sitting at my desk on Fifth Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, I used to work right across from the big Zara that was on Fifth Avenue, right by Rockefeller Center. Like I could look out of my office window and see Rockefeller Center. And I could not imagine where I was going next. And that's why I do believe that, okay, visualizing is powerful, but also doing the work to understand what you want is powerful as well. Because sometimes the vision may not be so clear because this is unfamiliar territory to you. You can't imagine how you're going to go from, let's say maybe, who knows, working in a mailroom to hosting a television show or something. You may not be able to visualize how that could ever be possible for you. But once you start setting some goals for yourself and immersing yourself in the things that you want to accomplish, then it starts to seem more real. For me, when I left, I didn't leave. And this is one of the things that I do wish that I had done a little different. I didn't leave with a very, very specific, detailed plan. But I did know what my goal was. And when I left my 9-to-5, my main goal was to get my manuscript traditionally published. That was my only goal. I didn't want to be self-published. I wanted to be traditionally published. And anytime anybody would say to me, oh, well, self-publishing is very doable now. Maybe you should think about that. I would politely say thank you. But in my mind, I knew I wasn't going that route. And I already said every single traditional publisher would have to turn me down before I self-published, because for me, that was my goal. And that was my big goal because I knew, coming from a PR background, no one knew me as an author. I needed to establish myself. And in order for people to take me serious and realize that, hey, she's really making a transition here, I needed to do something big and I needed to do something that was substantial and could carry some weight. So I needed my name to carry weight too. And I felt like by getting a traditional publishing deal, that would check those boxes. So that was my goal. So I just want to encourage everyone out there listening who thinks like, I don't know where I'm going with this. Just do more exploration of self, things that are around you. Pay attention. Start really looking at things and operating in your world with a different set of antennas and sensors on now, because now you're looking for clues. You're looking for clues as to what can be next for you. You don't have to have all the pieces to the puzzle figured out, laid out on the table before you make a move. You just need to be paying attention and you need to be aware.
Awareness is everything.
Yeah.
It really is. Ahyiana, what is your definition of living? And then secondly, how do you use that definition of living to assist women to shift, to embrace and conquer, to live their best life?
Oh gosh, my definition of living is being happy, is really being in the moment, is being grateful and appreciative for the things that come your way, is being aware of self. These are all things that I feel like you need to be doing if you're really living. And I think that is one of the fears that a lot of people have. I know I had before I made my switch, pivot, or quit. I did not want to go through life feeling like I wasn't living and that I wasn't doing what I could be doing, and that there were some untapped things out there and I wasn't reaching my full potential. And I specifically remember saying, I don't feel like I'm reaching my full potential in this job. I feel like there's more out there for me. I don't exactly know what it looks like, but I feel like there's more. And with me, I try and help women go in the direction of that more. But a part of that is the self-work that you have to do to get over those things like fear, to get over those things like not feeling like you have the courage to do whatever it is that your mind is drumming up, to embrace who you actually are, to make some of those mindset shifts so that you're not held back and you're ready to actually go out there and break out of whatever confines you may have felt you were in before. Because a lot of people, look, we're in this culture right now where everybody thinks that, it's so cool to be an entrepreneur. I don't recommend that everybody try and become an entrepreneur because I feel like there's a certain skill set that really makes certain people suited for it better than others. But my thing is, if you're sitting at your desk right now and you don't feel like you are living or you don't feel like you're reaching your full potential, you probably still will reach that point where you feel like you need to break out. And it might not be that you need to break out into entrepreneurship. It might be that you need to break out into a whole new career. It might be that you need to break out into a whole new life, a whole new identity. Because when you do that personal development work, your person will change. How you show up at the office will change. How you interact with your peers will change. How you interact with your family and your loved ones will change because you are growing as a person. And that's what you want. And that's what you need to get to that next level. Nobody said that when you graduate from college or when you get out of high school and you find this job, that's where you have to be for the rest of your life. No, those are the kind of constraints that we put on ourselves. But for you to actually be courageous enough to get out there and try something new and challenge yourself and push those boundaries, that's living right there. Because you can look back and you can say, I did everything I wanted to do. I tried everything I wanted to do. Whether I was good at it or not, that's a whole nother conversation. But I tried it. I embarked on that journey. So that's how I feel about it.
Yes, ma'am. Oh goodness. Ahyiana, let's chat about podcasting because you're a podcaster, I'm a podcaster. The difference is you like to coach people on how to launch their podcast, maintain their podcast, all that greatness to make it work for them. So from your perspective, what are a few key elements of digital branding that you suggest novice and seasoned podcasters keep in mind as they promote their digital product and footprint?
I think the main thing is to make it easy for people, to make your branding easy and easily digestible, to make the ways and the avenues in which listeners connect with you easy. I think that you want to think of a podcast just like you would thinking of, especially when you're launching a podcast, you want to think of it the same way that you would think of launching any other major project or like an album if you're like an indie artist, or a book if you're an author or something. Think of it the exact same way. You need to build momentum. You need to start creating and seeding the awareness. You need to make sure that your branding is cohesive and that it makes sense with the topics that you're going to be talking about, your show name as well. There's all these little things that you should be paying attention to that will help you to set the stage for success in your podcasting journey.
I love it. Simple and to the point. Now, you have a marketing and publicity background that has ushered you to do amazing opportunities that you shared throughout this episode. So how has your professional experience prepared you to easily connect and, relate to your clients and create career shifting and quitting moments? Because like you said earlier, sometimes they need to say goodbye and quit. So connect the relatability that you have from those experiences.
For me, I think one of the things that I think was crucial is, although I didn't know what the real landscape of PR looked like before entering the space, it is largely built on relationships and connecting with people over similar interests or similar agendas, things of that nature. And then when I moved on to work at the NBA, that was a very, very good training ground for just being a business professional in general. There's a standard of perfection there that everyone works toward. So the way that I engage with people now in my own business, it is a result of the things that I learned through working in that business. That I expect excellence from people, and I try and give excellence. And I think that that's helped me build relationships, keep relationships, because people don't want to engage with and interact with flaky people, or people that they can't count on, or people that say that they're going to do something and they never do it, or they drop the ball. When I was working in PR, dropping the ball was unacceptable. Like, that was cause for getting fired, that was at least cause for getting like reamed, and you did not want that to happen, because PR is one of those industries. If you've been in entertainment PR especially, you'll know that it is not unheard of for someone to get yelled at, screamed at, get their feelings hurt, people to walk away crying. Like, it never happened to me, because I think just the way I'm built, I was like, let's not do that. But I have seen it happen before. And I know that happens when, and it's not to justify it, but that happens when someone's expectations weren't met. So I try my best in my work now to be realistic about the expectations, to under promise and over deliver, things of that nature, so that my relationships will maintain at a certain level, and people won't, whisper behind my back and like, oh yeah, that's the girl who never emailed me back, or who never called me back, or who we were supposed to work on a project together, but she didn't follow through and hold up her end. Like, I never want to be that person. So I think all of my training from my professional years prior to working for myself, that set me up to engage with and interact with people the way that I do now in business. And I think that people appreciate it. I mean, I've been told that they do. And I think that helps you to be a stronger business professional when you show up in this world.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm a professional development advocate, and you are a personal development advocate, which I think there's a lot of similarities between the two.
Right.
What is your strategy to being like a continual student? Because I think anytime you're in development, you're constantly learning, and I think it's a lifestyle. So what is your strategy to being a continual student, to continue to evolve to your next level of professional best or personal best?
I say you're right. There is a lot of crossover, and the reason why I say personal development, because I know from my own experience that if I didn't do the work personally that had nothing to do with my 9 to 5 in my career, then I wouldn't have gotten to a point where I could actually make the switch, pivot, or quit. Mentally, I wouldn't have even been prepared for it. So for me, I just regularly try and read things that pour back into me. I, of course, listen to podcasts. I make sure that I'm reading articles and things. So when I say read things, I had books in mind, but I, of course, also read different articles and things, or like books online. I do webinars. I go and I engage with people in real life and have conversations and find out and connect with people about what they've learned. All of those things, to me, are a great place to start when you're trying to develop personally. And then also doing some of the self-care things too, that will just sort of like set you up to be able to deal with the way that life can just shift and change on you. Like, I have a morning routine. In my morning routine, I read, I do light meditation, and I only say light because I'm no meditation pro, but I understand the importance of it in my world, and just the silence and the being able to be connected with my own thoughts and what's going on with me, and just silence and letting, what's happening around me sort of just speak to me. I also have a set of affirmation cards. I journal in the morning. So these are all the things that I do to set me up so that I can continue to evolve and then just show up as my best self every day.
Best self, that's the key.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Absolutely.
The key.
Yeah.
Ayana, what's next for Switch, Pivot, or Quit?
Next for Switch, Pivot, or Quit is continued growth on the podcast front, obviously. As an individual and a host, I'll keep, doing my, doing webinars and things of that nature, helping people learn a podcast. And I actually have a podcasting webinar coming up on March 21st, where I'm teaching a webinar called Turning Podcasting into Profit. So that is for beginner podcasters as well as people who have been in this space and just want to figure out some tools and tactics of how to grow and expand and maybe make more or make money. I shouldn't even say make more, because some people are podcasting and they're not actually making money off of it. So either make money or make more money. I'm also doing some live workshops and things of that nature. But what I'm going to have coming up soon, specifically for the Switch, Pivot, or Quit audience, or people that fall into that audience, is a workbook that's going to walk you through steps as to it's not necessarily how to make a switch, pivot, or quit. It's just how you can be prepared on the personal development side to make your switch, pivot, or quit, because everyone's journey is going to look different. In that workbook, I'm sharing with you parts of my journey and things that I did, and you already see that I'm on the other side. So there must be something there must be some proof in that pudding, but there's no promises being made, because you may decide initially that you want to do X, Y, Z, but then somewhere in the midst of your journey that changes and you want to do something else, but this workbook is designed to be a guide for you along your journey.
Okay, well, I definitely think I might need to sign up for your class in March, because I'm always in student mode. Now, for the podcasting piece, after they do the webinar, what's next after that?
So there is first. What I would suggest first is I have a course that is available now. It's a e-course, and you just go to switchpivotorquit.com and click on resources, and that basically gets anybody that's new to podcasting, that gets them introduced to the world. It goes over all the steps that you need in 60 minutes or less to just learn podcasting and wrap your mind around it, because a lot of people hear the word podcasting and they're familiar with it, but you'd be surprised how many people don't really understand it. When I first launched my podcast, I had quite a few people that seemed a bit embarrassed to say to me, hey, so I know you have this podcast, and I know what a podcast is, but how do I listen? So there's still this learning curve with people in podcasts and podcasting, obviously. So that course will walk you through all the initial steps. And then the webinar is a little bit more in depth when you're ready to get started. Maybe you want to get started at an accelerated pace, or you're already podcasting, and then it'll help you dive more into ways that you can monetize and grow your podcast. And then after that, I also offer sessions with me, 60-minute one-on-one sessions, so that we can dig deeper if that is what you feel like you need in terms of helping you grow and giving you direction, especially from the marketing and branding side, and then telling you some of the things that I've learned from being in the industry that the average person just might not know.
Awesome resource. So if they need some encouragement on how to create this switch, pivot, or quit, your workbook is a fantastic resource. And if you're ready to launch out and share your voice and your purpose and your niche and your expertise, check out her podcasting workshops. I'm sure they're great and very helpful, because she's practicing what she preaches, and her product is phenomenal. So she's going to teach you amazing stuff. So listeners,
thank you.
Tune in.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. So please share just a few success stories that your coaching clients have experienced that's kept you motivated as chief encourager.
One young lady that really stands out to me, she was not really happy in where she was with her job. It was related to what she had gotten her degree in, but she just felt like she needed to switch, pivot, or quit, and she wasn't content with where she was. And after me coaching her through, she ended up landing a job that was right in line with what she wanted to be doing, because she took the time to check herself, basically, and we discussed that. We went through that, and she was actually able to land a job at with a really big, well, I guess I could just say it, Shondaland. So Shonda Rhimes, if everybody knows of her, she has a lot of, primetime television shows really on primetime TV, network TV, Scandal, Grey's Anatomy, How to Get Away with Murder. So she has a production company. So her production company works behind the scenes, obviously, on helping to produce those primetime television shows. And this young lady that I coached was able to land a position at her production company.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Now, I know that you have your journal, and you have a digital journal that you promote, and I know earlier that you mentioned journaling, but what do you want listeners, potential clients, anyone that follows you that might hear this interview, how do you want them to look at journaling different, how it can impact them personally, professionally along their journey?
You know, I wasn't journaling when I first got started in my journey, and I didn't really pay it much attention. But I think the more that you, and the reason I say this is because you do not feel like you need to start journaling tomorrow. Okay. If you're not feeling it and it doesn't feel in alignment with where you are in your life right now, that's fine. But for me, I ended up growing to a space where I welcomed it. And maybe you'll do the same thing, because for me, it was about self-awareness, checking in with myself, and also gratitude. And that is one of the things that I do in my journal is I write what I'm grateful for. And I think that we go throughout our days so much of the time looking to check the next box, looking to achieve the next goal, to make the next sale, to land the next project, to work with this person, to connect with that person, all these things that sometimes we can overlook the smaller things that we've achieved to actually get us to where we are. So I think that journaling is a great way for you to check in with yourself and for you to also be able to look back. Like, let's say those days where you're feeling a little down and you're like, oh gosh, what is my life? What's going on with my life? Where are things going? What am I doing? You can flip back through your journal and see how far you've come. You can see the progress. So it's almost like a little timeline for yourself in terms of where you were at different points in your life and how much progress you've made. So if you're interested in just developing as a person, I think that journaling is a great addition to that personal development process.
Ahyiana, you shared some nuggets today. You were definitely chief encourager, present fully and up front and center with my listeners, and I totally appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
My
a
pleasure.
guest. I mean, timing is everything. So I'm so happy that I reached out to you and we were able to make this happen.
Likewise, you're right. Timing is everything, and I'm so glad, and I appreciate you inviting me to be on your newly launched show. It's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. I like to end every episode by my guests sharing their favorite quote or affirmation that keeps them creating career tipping moments. So what is that for you?
This one is actually one that I got from the book You Are a Badass, and it is, I receive all the good that life has to offer me. And the reason why I like that one is because it's general, and a lot of times people say, oh, your, affirmations and your things like that should be very specific and stuff. That's fine. There comes a point for that, but if you're looking for something to get you started and just get in a positive mindset, that is a really good one. And I say that one to myself every morning when I wake up. And I say that throughout the day because to me, positive energy makes a difference. And if you're a person that is sitting in a negative headspace, especially if you're looking to make a switch, pivot, or quit, but none of the action has really started to take place yet, you might be feeling depressed. You might be feeling like unmotivated. You might be feeling angry, annoyed, all these things. If you start to say affirmations like that, like I receive all the good that life has to offer me, to me, that just makes me smile. That makes me feel and think good things are coming my way and I'm ready to receive them. And it's just like almost like a small reminder for yourself. So when you start setting the tone in that way, it's much easier for your days to go better, to be brighter, to be more optimistic instead of staying in this negative funk. And you may not feel it when you first start saying it. You might have to keep saying it and keep saying it, but just keep saying it until you feel it daily, 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 daily. And to me, those are the little things that you can do to boost yourself. So for me, that's one of the affirmations that I love.
I receive all the good that life has to offer me.
Yes.
Yes, I'm smiling. I'm smiling.
Exactly, right? It makes you feel happy, like, yes, some good stuff is coming my way and I receive it. I don't even know what it is. I don't have to know what it is, but I'm putting that out there in the universe and it's going to come back to me. So I feel good.
You feel good. You're smiling. You're shaking your shoulders.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
let's go. Ahyiana, please share with the listeners how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So all things available at switchpivotorquit.com. You can go there and check out all the resources that I mentioned, as well if you're interested in booking a Switch Pivot or Quit SPQ strategy session, you can go there as well and book a complimentary session. And then if you feel like you want to work together, then we go from there. You can always check out Switch Pivot or Quit on Instagram. That's just at Switch Pivot or Quit. That is where I tend to typically hang out. And that's pretty much it. That's how you can find me.
Thank you. And you can find me, Michelle Beatty, at careertipper.com and on Instagram at careertipper. Don't forget to stop by the site and sign up for our newsletter about our upcoming guests and career tipping moments. And listeners, thanks for joining us today. And remember to be confidently you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Career Tipper Podcast. We're grateful for our listeners and guests. For more resources about how to evolve to your professional best, share your comments and feedback about this episode and your suggestions for future guests, visit careertipper.com. Until next time, be confidently you.